I'm being helped. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Frank. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining us, both those of you that have come in via GoToMeeting and joining by remote. Hello and welcome. And for those of you who have joined us here in PCAMS, thank you very much for coming. We appreciate it. Today we're very excited to explore some of the informatics capacities that are really changing the way we think about and the way we can do clinical research, both here at UAB as well as in collaboration with several other academic institutions and so forth. So we have a fantastic lineup, including Dr. Jim Cimino, who is the co-director of the CCTS for Informatics as well as the director for the UAB Informatics Institute. Matt Wyatt is also joining us from the UAB Informatics Institute, and then I'm also delighted to acknowledge Dr. Manfred Stapp, who will be our closer essentially, but he is the Senior Vice President and Chief Medical Officer of Trinetics. And so this is our chance to show how we are leveraging some of these informatics tools in different ways. So rather than me taking up all the bandwidth, perhaps I could ask, I think Matt, are you, Jim's kicking off. Jim, I'll hand it to you.
Okay. Thank you, Jennifer. So I think some of you know about I2b2, and more of you are learning about it every week as we see increased interest in attendance at our training sessions. And so for those not familiar with it or wondering what is Shrine, what is Trinetics, if you hear about those, these are all different ways to get at basically the same sets of data. We have an electronic health record, the Cerner system, and we bring the data from our electronic health record into a repository that is self-service search engine for researchers who want to get access to data for a variety of purposes. So we take these data, they're the same data, but there are different ways of looking at them, different ways to get to them, and then Shrine and Trinetics provide ways to get to data that are at other institutions, not just ours, and also provide a way, at least Trinetics does, for people to come in from outside and get access to our data. So to make all of this clear, we have Matt Wyatt, who's going to explain what I2b2 is and how the various uses of it, and talk to us about Shrine, and then Manfred Stapp will talk to us about Trinetics.
Thank you. I have a tendency to wander, so I will put on the microphone just in case. So what I'll talk to you about a little bit today is, if I can get this to click and move forward. There we go. We'll talk basically about three things. All of them around access to clinical data, both within UAB, across multi-site collaborations, and via Shrine, and also opportunities for clinical research and collaboration through Trinetics. The highest level that you can get is basically I2b2 is self-service for feasibility assessment, hypothesis exploration, actually getting limited data set data within UAB, and facilitating consultation requests when I2b2 isn't quite enough. Shrine is multi-institutional collaboration, and Trinetics is, at its core, identifying industry study opportunities to bring to UAB. So I'll talk a little bit about the overall infrastructure. So Cerner Impact is our electronic health record. We load data into our enterprise data warehouse daily. A subset of that information, really some of the core, most understandable, most valuable things to the research enterprise, are loaded to I2b2 regularly, usually bi-weekly, sometimes weekly. And then Trinetics and Shrine are built on top of I2b2 to support multi-institutional collaboration. So first, the typical way, or the long-standing way for researchers to gain access to clinical data, is to come to the Enterprise Data Warehouse team. The Enterprise Data Warehouse Research Data Team, the CCTS Informatics, and the Informatics Institute. I2b2 offers the opportunity to not have to go to an honest broker or facilitated consultation, but direct access to a user interface and direct access to data any time of day, any time of night, whenever you would like. When you put off your grant proposal to the last minute, you can go immediately to I2b2 and get data. There's also the opportunity, as Dr. Cimino said, for using Shrine and Trinetics to facilitate those interactions outside of UAB. What we'll talk basically about today is is inside this circle, i2b2, Shrine, and Trinetics. So research is not a linear set of activity. So I put together a lot of different research activities, and if you don't see your particular research activity on here, fear not. Tell me about it and I'll put it on the slide and we can help you with it. No problem. So feasibility assessment. Feasibility assessment is the primary intent of i2b2. We'll go through in detail and look at the i2b2 user interface, how you can build your own queries and get data. But basically, if you want to ask the question, do we have the research population here at UAB to approach this study, i2b2 can help with that. If there's information that's not in i2b2 or the question is too complex to answer via i2b2, we certainly answer those questions via the enterprise data warehouse as well. And for example, if you want to know how many people with breast cancer were diagnosed within a 2-year period but not diagnosed before that and never having had a visit before that, stratified by age, race, gender, and year, no problem. i2b2 won't do that, but the enterprise data warehouse can, and our analysts do that and did this week. Hypothesis exploration. i2b2 also offers an opportunity that wasn't necessarily available easily before. If you don't quite know what your patient population is, if you don't quite know what your question is, if it's not for a specifically defined research protocol, you just want to explore, i2b2 is a reasonable place to do that. Writing your proposal. So for proposed enrollment, for research studies, for characteristics of your your proposed enrollment population, even for fairly detailed preliminary data to support your proposal, many people can get that via i2b2. That can answer lots of questions. And again, if not, the data warehouse has effectively anything that is documented in clinical practice. If your population is not sufficient within UAB, why not go to other institutions? And we can go to those other institutions either via Shrine or potentially via Trinetics. So if you have a population of, you're studying a rare disease at UAB and you have 50 patients, but that's not quite enough, well, you can look at Emory, MUSC, Arkansas. Maybe they each have 25 patients. And together, we have enough to really approach the study. Or even if you have enough population, but your proposal would be strengthened by having the entire Southeast, then that's an opportunity both via i2b2 and via Trinetics and Shrine. So access to limited data sets and actual study data sets. Via i2b2, you can not only get aggregate information, but you can actually get patient-level detail information. Not PHI necessarily, or at least not full PHI, name, medical record number, contact information, etc., but what's called a HIPAA-limited data set. And the i2b2 system as a whole has an exemption from the IRB to provide limited data sets, and those can be used, accessed self-service directly via i2b2. So once you have gone through the process, you have your IRB approved study, and want to go find patients, either via the data warehouse or if we have to drill back into the enterprise electronic health record, either way we can provide detailed contact information. That can be name, medical record number, contact information, past and future visits. So once you have defined your patient set in i2b2, you progress through feasibility, you get your IRB approval and say, thank you, now I would like to call those people, we can hand you that data set. For secondary analysis and full research data sets, even if it's not contacting patients, waiver of consent, secondary analysis, we provide full research data sets from the enterprise data warehouse with really as much detail as is documented in structured clinical practice at UAB. If you have additional data collection needs for prospective enrollment research data collection. So if you find yourself in a position where you want to go do manual chart abstraction and get lab values or other information from the clinical record like that, don't. If you need every hemoglobin A1C on your 100 patients and every diagnosis so that you can go look for comorbidities, don't go patient by patient looking manually in the EHR and manually transcribing that into your data set. Don't do that. We can provide that information very easily via the EDW. Now, for times where the information is not that straightforward and you have qualitative assessment that you have to do, we still do provide read-only access to the actual EHR for research purposes with an IRB protocol. And you can go do manual chart review to your heart's content. So opportunities outside of UAB. Not only can we look for opportunities that exist elsewhere, but people elsewhere can look for opportunities with us. So if via Trinetics, and Dr. Staff is going to talk, I believe, a good bit about opportunities coming UAB's way via Trinetics, but just like we could look at MUSC and Arkansas and Emory and Kentucky for patient populations of interest, they can also look to us and come to us for opportunities. So the long story short here is basically those tools in the middle can support just about anything you need from a research perspective when it comes to access to clinical data. And if it is a set of tools, we intend to expand the set of tools as we go. And if you have additional research needs that we can address, I will happily add more things to the slide. So I'm going to go fairly quickly through what i2b2 actually is. You won't learn how to use i2b2 today, but if I come at all close to doing my job, you will know why to use i2b2. So i2b2 at its base is a self-service query builder. You can find concepts that you are interested in, whether it's diagnoses, visits, patient attributes, labs, medications, etc., and build queries saying, as this says, anyone who has this particular ICD-10 code and has any one of these medications in their record, and you get an answer, in this case, of 25,000 plus patients, unique patients who meet those characteristics. You can, and you can build any variety of queries. I would challenge you to find a Boolean logic expressed query that can't be expressed in this user interface. It might be difficult because people ask some very complex questions, but you can add as many criteria as you want. You can say having these diagnoses but not these. You can say having these diagnoses and having this medication administration after. You can express very complicated queries in this user interface, and it is a much simpler user interface than the enterprise data warehouse. Now, it doesn't have all of the data that the data warehouse does, but it allows self-service access to this data in a way that is very, very beneficial to the research community. You can also express query by particular values, so you can look for medications of a particular route or dose or frequency. You can look for lab values within a certain range or above a certain range. This example, a BMI less than, I didn't put a number there, but there should be one. And again, you can do less than or equal to, greater than, between, effectively any Boolean logic you can express here. So what can you get? So first, as I said, you get a number. You get this many patients meet your criteria. But if that's not sufficient, you can also get admittedly fairly rudimentary characterization of your population by age, race, gender, vital status, etc. You can also get a very detailed, and you don't necessarily have to read this text, but you get a detailed description of your query logic as well as the numeric results, stratification by age, race, gender, etc. Now all of this is oriented towards aggregate results. This is information about a number of patients. So we have extended i2b2 to also include the ability to download individual patient-level data. And you can do that by basically filling out a form so that we can track the release of a limited data set and choose what type of information you're looking for. And you can get it in the form of individual facts on individual patients, or you can get it in the form of the number of patients who have a particular diagnosis. So you can get a patient population, ask for medications, ask for the counts of concepts and not necessarily individual patients, and see the top 20 medications for a given population. So, and this is just some random examples including fake things like medical record number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But the information comes out as either text-oriented or it's targeted towards loading to Excel spreadsheets. It's also structured in a way that if it's too large for Excel spreadsheets, you can load it to SAS or your statistical package of choice. And just to make sure it's clear, this is individual patient-level data, but with not with real medical record number visit. So this is suitable for release as a HIPAA-limited data set. And the IRB has reviewed and approved this system to deliver this kind of data self-service to investigators at UAB. And anyone can log in with a Blazor ID. So what does i2b2 have in it? As I said, it's not the full data warehouse, but it does have a huge volume of data. So 141,000 plus lab results. Allergies, medications, procedures, diagnoses, cancer registry data, lab panels, insurance information, visit information, etc. Oh, I'm sorry, 141 million lab results. Right. Sorry, 1,000. That's probably a day. Yeah, a million, 1,000. And the fact count by year helps to sort of illustrate the duration of the enterprise data warehouse and thus i2b2. The line in the sand is effectively 2010, which coincides with the inpatient implementation of our EHR. That's where we have really the full breadth of clinical data. There are a lot of things that go back past that. For example, the cancer registry data goes back to the 60s. But effectively, we have a full and complete clinical record in the enterprise data warehouse and in i2b2 from 2010 forward.
Is Horizon able to interface with i2b2?
Information. The question was about Horizon interfacing with i2b2. So there's information that's represented through Horizon lab results and things like that are represented through i2b2. So in that case, yes. Horizon, in terms of clinical text, we have the opportunity to do natural language processing, extract data from clinical text, and load that into i2b2. It is one of the things on the list of things of interest, but it's not in i2b2 yet.
Diagnosis.
Yes, yes, those are there. So I have a few examples that I'll go through very quickly so that Dr. Staff has sufficient time. These are a few examples, and I gotta love quotes where it says, "This has been great for us." Allowing people to, Dana Golson in nutrition finds i2b2 thus far very valuable in feasibility assessment and targeting the right studies, and have exceeded recruitment for a reasonably new study, and is very, very, very happy about that. We have plenty of examples at UAB of not being able to sufficiently recruit for studies. This is an example where it is used. This illustrates two things. One, you can really do research based on the limited data set, patient data level data. And this is also an example where initially this person did not find the population they were looking for. They got an answer of 0 in i2b2. But we dug in a little further, helped them figure out what exactly they were looking for, how things are documented in the clinical record in the ADW, and provided them the data set, and they won first place at for oral abstracts at a regional symposium. A variety of information has been used both in aggregate and in detail for supporting grant submissions. This is one particular person who's done 4 different types of submissions in the last month, specifically with data from i2b2, and in one case i2b2 wasn't quite enough and came to our analysts and got additional data to support the submissions. The last case is probably of less interest to biological and clinical researchers, but I think it's great because informatics also does research, and I think software development is by its very nature innovation. i2b2 is also a software development platform where we can build new tools to either support the research enterprise or do additional data analysis. And this is an example of an MD PhD student who built a plugin to i2b2 to integrate with external resources, specifically to integrate info buttons and get additional information, including sending context of what kind of patient is this, and getting information back into i2b2 to describe, to provide additional data from external resources. So some additional innovations we've done with i2b2, as I said, we did the download plugin. We've actually integrated, in order to provide the ability to just download patient data, we needed to integrate with our learning management system so we could verify IRB training, verify HIPAA training, and verify the acknowledgement of appropriate use of limited data sets. So we have direct integration with our learning management system. As I said, we have the IRB exemption for self-service access to that information, which is pretty atypical for i2b2 deployments. And this, again, is something that probably nobody cares about but me. But we've actually developed an incremental loading process, so we don't have to completely rebuild i2b2 every time. And nobody had done that until we did. And now I've heard a couple of other people following us and doing that. And then i3b3 is the info button integration. So if you would like to get more information, there's lots of information in Research Commons and CCTS. The easiest way is just Google i2b2 UAB, and we are the first couple of hits. So I'll transition now to talk a little bit about i2b2, or about Shrine. Shrine is specifically built on top of i2b2. And think about it this way. All of the aggregate information that I said you could get from i2b2, building the query, asking the question, getting the count, Shrine allows you to not just get the answer from UAB, but also from other institutions. So you don't know just that there are this many patients that meet my criteria at UAB, but you also know how many at MUSC, at Emory, at UAMS, so that you can target where those potential collaboration opportunities are. So you know what the macro level patient population characteristics are at other institutions immediately, and can have access to that information just like you can get counts at UAB. And the flip side is that they can also do that with us. So it's driving multi-institutional collaborations from both directions. And where I see huge opportunity is not just with our existing partners in the Southeast CTSA consortium, but also in our CCTS partner network, many of whom already have i2b2 infrastructure, some of whom are actually already participating in Shrine instances elsewhere. And there's huge opportunity to promote our multi-institutional collaboration opportunities there. I will really not talk much about Trinetics because Dr. Stapp is going to probably do that much better than me. But Trinetics offers a very similar opportunity to Shrine, though with perhaps some different nuance. There's some things that we can do with i2b2 locally that are potentially not opportunities with Trinetics, but there are opportunities with Trinetics that aren't necessarily opportunities with i2b2 and Shrine. So the key here is that we can also promote multi-institutional collaboration and visibility via Trinetics as well. And Dr. Stapp is going to talk much more about the specific industry-sponsored perspective of Trinetics. Quick plug. We have sold out all of our prior i2b2 training, but we are now scheduled for twice a month. And our next 2 that are not full yet, January 5th and January 17th. There's a flyer out in the hall. If you're online, I think you will get these slides. 2 hours. The sessions are 2 hours. And they're basically a 90% of i2b2 level course. So it's the introduction, what is it, how do you use it? Really, it's a hands-on training to really log in yourself, construct queries in i2b2, and it's a hands-on training.
So you waitlisted like 3 courses?
Yeah, we've sold out and waitlisted 4 now. So the 5th, 6th, the last 4 have been waitlisted. So are there any questions before we switch over to Dr. Stapp about about i2b2 and Shrine?
If you're doing an investigator machine query in i2b2 and you don't seem to be getting where you need to go, what's the next step? Is it to send you an email, get in touch with Jennifer? What's the sort of pathway to deeper insight?
There are a couple of pathways. The question is about what is the pathway into more detail than i2b2, a pathway into the EDW. And there are a couple of different pathways, but the easy answer is call anyone who is associated with CCTS Research Commons, the Informatics Institute, or CCTS Informatics. The i2b2 actually has a consultation request process where you can basically drag your patient set into it and say, I need help, and somebody will call you. There's a i2b2 support email address that you can email, and we will call you. There's actually a research data request form on the CCTS Research Commons page. It's the second one on the screen, the research data requests. There's a request form there for both prior to IRB approval requests and with IRB approval requests. And those go directly to CCTS Research Commons and the Enterprise Data Warehouse Research Data Team.
And if you want to do a Shrine query either across the network or across the partner network or maybe across the aggregate, how does that work?
At present, to initiate multi-institutional requests, that is a come to us answer. That is, we have connectivity, but right now we are still working towards really fulfilling that multi-institutional network in real space and potentially for self-service. At this point, it is come to Research Commons, and we can help with that.